Okay, welcome back to the class. Uh, Today we are going to look for the strategic human resource management, which is known as HARM. Personally, this topic is much more interesting than normal strategic part. And so this strategic part is focused on human resource management, so which is discuss about the people, performance, and competitive advantage of the human resources and organization as well. Um, okay, so I divided it in five parts for this SHRM part. The first part is the HRM as a static tools. So from administrative to strategic partner. And second part is the high performance work systems, which is HPWS, and the firm performances. And third one is talent acquisition and recruiting and retention as comparative advantage, and strategic HRM in practice, uh, alignment, culture, and change as well. This is the first part. The last part is the synthesis and the HR strategy interface as well. So learning objective is that it's a distinguish traditional HRM from strategic HRM using the HR architecture framework. And second objective is that explain the theoretical mechanisms through which high performance work system affects from performance. And evaluate empirical evidence linking SHRM practices to sustain the competitive advantage using RBB, J-Barnes resource-based view, and analyze the talent acquisition and retention strategies through the lens of a human capital theory and signaling theory as well. Okay, so let's have a look for the part one, HRM as strategy tool. Um, as I explained above, so I would like to explain it from administrative to strategic partner as well. So why human resources is a strategic problem? We need to discuss about it. Over the previous weeks, we have examined the strategy from the level of industries, the firm, the business unit, and the corporate portfolio. So we have analyzed how firms position themselves competitively, how they build resource advantage, and how they make diversification decisions, and how they manage multi-business portfolios. Today, in this part, we turn to the one dimension of competitive advantage that is simultaneously the most powerful and the most difficult to replicate, which is people. So strategic human resource management addresses the question of how a firm's people practices, culture, and talent systems can be designed and aligned to support and sustain competitive advantage. So this is not the HR that sends you onboarding paperwork. And this is not the HR that processes payroll and administer benefits. So the strategic HR we are examining today operates at the intersection of organizational capability and long-term competitive positioning. And the academic evidence accumulated over 3 decades of empirical research is unambiguous. Firms that invest strategically in their human capital systems outperform those that treat HR as a compliance function. Oh, so this guy, in what becomes uh, one of the most cited papers in management research, and studied 900 more than 900 US firms and found that one standard deviation improvement in high performance work system practices was associated with quite huge money reduction, this amount. So in employee turnover per year per employee, and on 18,641 dollars increases in sales per employee and 3,814 increases in firm market value per employee. So these are not rounding errors. They are economically enormous effects. The strategic question is how and why. Today's lecture is organized around three major themes. First is that we examine what makes HRM strategy. So which means that the shift from administrative to strategic partnership and the analytical frameworks that distinguish them. Second is that we conduct a deep analysis uh, of high performance work system. So what they are, why they work, and what the empirical evidence says about their effects. And third one is that we examine the talent acquisition, TA, and retention as competitive advantage, how firms build and sustain the human capital that underlies their strategic positions. Okay, so we move to the to understand the SHRM. So to understand what SHRM is, we must first understand what it replaces. So traditional human resource management, often called personal management. So in its earlier incarnations was fundamentally an administrative and compliance function. Its core activities were transactional, so recruiting and selecting employees, administering compensation and benefits, maintaining employment records, ensuring legal compliance with labor laws, and managing disciplinary procedures. The underlying philosophy was reactive. HR existed to solve people problems after they arose. So not to anticipate and shape the human capital requirements of a competitive strategy. The shift toward strategic HRM began in the early 1980s, driven by two converging focus forces. First, the rise of Japan's manufacturing competition. So this forced American and European firms to confront the uncomfortable reality that Japanese companies were achieving superior quality, speed, and cost simultaneously, and that their competitive advantage was rooted not in technology, natural resources, or government um, protection, but in organizational practices, how they designed work, trained employees, structured the teams, and built cultures of continuous improvement. The human organization was the competitive weapon, and Western firms were losing. And second is the academic research. The most notably the work Mike B. and colleague in the Harvard Business School, influential managing human assets project, and later Richard Watson's landmark Harvard Business Review article from control to commitment in the workplace. This is very classic and it's really interesting. Also provided a theoretical foundation for the argument that HR practices could be fundamentally redesigned to generate organizational capability rather than merely to manage compliance. So the transformation Watson described was from a cultural-oriented model, so in which work was designed for maximum standardization, supervision was intensive, and employees were treated as variable cost to be minimized, to a commitment-oriented model, in which work was designed to elicit discretionary effort. Supervision was replaced by internalized goals and mutual trust, and employees were treated as long-term assets whose development created sustained competitive value. So this conceptual shift is the intellectual foundation of everything we will examine today. So here is the HR architecture framework. The most analytically powerful framework for understanding HR SHRM at the system level is the HR architecture. So developed by the Lipak and Snell in their academic measurement AOM review article. Uh, so toward the theory of human capital allocation and development, this framework addresses a um, um, question that sounds simple but has profound strategic implications. Should firms treat all employees the same? So they argue that the answer is an emphatic no, and that the failure to differentiate HR practices um, 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 across employee segments is a primary source of strategic misalignment. So their framework classifies employees along two dimensions: the human capital value, which means that the degree to which an employee's knowledge, skills, um, I'm gonna write for you, knowledge, skills, abilities contributes to the firm's core competencies and competitive advantage. Competitive advantage. And human capital uniqueness. So for example, the degree to which those capabilities are firm specific. And developed through the firm's own processes. and culture and experience rather than available from the external labor market. Okay, I hope you guys understand well. Here is the quadrant, is a knowledge base, core employees. The value is high, uniqueness is high. So HR, internal development, long-term investment in training, and socialization, career development, like that. So the relationship is that organizational, long-term mutual commitment, extensive benefits, promotion from within as well. And next quadrant is a job-based, quite traditional employees. The value is high, but uniqueness is low. So in HR, his external acquisition is better. It's higher from market standardized rule. It's better. So the relationship is a symbiotic. The market reference is compensation, performance, contingency retention as well. And next quadrant is the contract-based alliance partners. The value is low, uniqueness is high. So in HR mode, the collaborate alliance is a partnering with specialist firms or individuals. So the relationship is the partnership is important. It's a project-based relational contract as well. And last one is that compliance-based. The value is low, uniqueness is low. So outsourcing or contingent employment. So minimize cost and commitment. So the relationships is transactional, so short-term, market-based, minimal investment as well. The strategic implication of this framework is that the best HR practices are not universal. So they are contingent on the type of human capital being managed, treating compliance-based employees with the same costly internal development model appropriate for core knowledge workers is wasteful. And conversely, treating core knowledge workers with the transactional efficiency model appropriate for the peripheral workers is strategically destructive. It undermines the very organizational capabilities on which competitive advantage depends. Okay. Okay, good. Good. Okay, so before we move on to high performance work system, HPWS, uh, I would like to give some questions for you guys. The first, you guys think about the firm you know well. So either from work experience or internship or throughout a case study. So how does it differentiate its HR practices across employee segments? So does each HR architecture align with its competitive strategy? So what would you change? And take a few minutes to discuss with your friends or your coworkers or your family, whoever. So before going to the next part, high performance work system, just think about these questions. Then I hope you guys study again about the HR architecture as well. Okay, let's take a break. Then we're back to class.